the engine of this Kevin Hart roast will be that he's a comic at the top of the game, and he wants his friends, people from his life, people he knows well, to roast him. I don't want to ruin the surprises. There's going to be some great surprises on this one, but it's revenge. He was really mean last time. To me, to Tom, I talked Tom into it, and then Kevin was so freaking vicious. So now Kevin has agreed to be roasted, and I'm like, oh, okay. Ooh, the swords are out. This is going to be no holds. I'm in full roast mode on a day like that. Once the producer hat comes off and the roast hat comes on, I'm unleashed. Look, baby, come on. Born to roast.
Hello and welcome to Obsessed the Podcast. I'm Matt Wilstein from The Daily Beast, and today on the show I am joined by a true comedy legend, the Roastmaster General himself, who will be back at it this coming Sunday night on Netflix for the live Roast of Kevin Hart. The filmed version of his surprisingly emotional one-man Broadway show, Take a Banana for the Ride, is also streaming on Netflix now. Jeff Ross, welcome to Obsessed the Podcast.
Matt, thank you, my man. I love your ramp up.
It's good to see you. It's been too long.
Man, too long, but I hold these for when it's big, and now I got two biggies coming out at the same time.
You do, you really do. Yeah, I want to get to your Broadway show that's on Netflix. But let's start with this roast because it's right around the corner. The Kevin Hart roast, which is very exciting, and it comes 2 years after the wild success of the Tom Brady roast, which I was in the audience for and had a blast watching you guys do that live. So I thought maybe we could actually start there. How do you explain how huge that was? Because that just went far beyond sort of all of the roasts that you'd done up to that point, I think.
I mean, it was almost like so much had to line up, Matt, for that roast
Yeah.
where you had to have Tom agree. Then he had to
Right.
agree to do it live. Then he unretired. Then he retired and unretired and then retired again. He got divorced. And then we were like, wait, we're doing a festival. Why don't we just wait for the festival?
Yeah.
And then the whole world kind of like wasn't really ready yet. But I got to give Tom credit and Netflix credit for going, screw it. We're doing it. We're bringing this stuff back. Everybody was scared for years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this event showed how big these roasts can be at a time when society is supposedly so woke and so scared of comedy and everyone's so hesitant, and it didn't really that didn't come through that night. It felt like it went beyond all of that
What
conversation.
was it like in the room? What did it feel like in the arena?
It was huge. I mean, it was the big stage. I think you had some pyrotechnics up there. Yeah, it was crazy. It was in a stadium at the Forum, which is a big room for comedy. But
Yeah.
I think it played. And then of course I later watched it on Netflix as well to see what it was like there. But yeah, it was very cool to be in the room for that. And it just was like hitter after hitter. Obviously, I think the big story out of that night was Nikki Glaser, who well and I know well, but I think the world got to know really well that night. And it's really changed her career. So I guess heading into this Kevin Hart roast, I was wondering if are comics just like ringing your phone off the hook, trying to get that Nikki Glaser bump this
I
time.
think you heard a little bit of it before we started, like
Yeah.
my phone. I'm going through 2 full batteries a day over here on my my phone, everybody wants to be a part of it, and I don't even think it's because of the success. It's only partly because of the success of the Tom Brady roast. I think a big part of it is people love the roasts again. Like,
Hmm.
it's the format that is the star. It's the format that makes it great, I think. People love to see this type of humor. It used to just be stand-up, sketch, improv, and now, like, roast battling and roasting, it's really like the fourth pillar now of comedy, where everywhere I go, no matter where in the world, they're like, "Who's next? What's the next
Hmm. Yep.
roast?"
That was the big question. I mean, in the past 2 years, is who's going to be the next one. I'd heard some like wild ideas thrown around. So I forget who told me they wanted it to be Mark Zuckerberg. That was one idea that was thrown my way. Um, were there people who you went after who said no? You know, not to insult Kevin Hart or anything, but, you know, was there anyone, who you wanted to roast on this one that just didn't work out for whatever reason?
There's always people that you dream about and they're not ready. You never get a no never because celebrities, especially superstars, they kind of fantasize about being the center of attention, even when there's a target on them. So you never get a no never, but you sometimes you get not now. And I'm okay with that because like I've been doing this a long time. I'm happy to wait. And Tom Brady was like that. And because we're doing it at the comedy festival, it's kind of the finale of this Netflix is a joke fest. Kevin's perfect because I pitched it out as kind of the conclave, right? Like all the bishops are coming to see the new pope, and by agreeing to get roasted, not even getting roasted, just agreeing to get roasted, I think really goats somebody like Kevin, who's like, yeah, just bring it. I don't care what you say. Nothing's off limits. Go for it. And it's kind of wonderful. I mean, it really shows the integrity behind a celebrity when they go, yeah, um, I have nothing to hide and I can laugh at myself and I don't take life so seriously that I can't have some fun with this. So it brings a lot of joy to people. And I don't know, I'm waking up every day, Matt, like, what should I wear? What joke should I do? Like a little bit, like I don't know if you played like Little League as a kid or something.
Mhm.
Like I wake up like going, I want to suit up. Is today the day? Like it's game time. I got the writers working right now, working on stuff for the show, and the sets being built, and the graphics are being designed, and it's just great, man.
It's funny you said, nothing is off limits for Kevin. I mean, he certainly has a lot that you could work with, in his life and everything. I was looking back at after the Brady roast, Tom Brady came out and kind of expressed some regrets about participating, I think, and he felt like, if certain things went too hard. Um, and Kevin Hart was asked about it, and he said, "Yeah, I think people should be able to put some things off limits." But you're saying that for him personally, he has not come to you and said, "You know what? I'll do this, but please just lay off of this topic or that topic."
Well, I think with me, I've done this so much. Telling me what's off limits is probably a bad idea because then I'm going to taunt you with it. Like, I think I want Kevin to leave going, that was so much fun. I can't wait to tell my friends and family who missed it, like all the jokes or whatever. Like, so I don't know. There's like a freedom happening right now in comedy. And I like that the roasts are kind of at the forefront of that.
Yeah. You have had to have those conversations with people before, I know, about putting things off limits. There's that famous story about Trump saying that you couldn't make fun of his net worth. That was the thing that he was really worried about, right?
I think that's a little revisionist.
Has that been blown out of proportion?
Nothing was off limits, and we made fun of his finances. My best joke was, I read your book, Donald, The Art of the Deal. How come it had 4 chapter 11s?
If you could go there, then you could go anywhere.
Yeah, so as long as he had the last word, I don't think he cared really. Maybe those jokes made him wince about his finances, but certainly didn't hurt him.
Yeah. Well, that was 15 years ago, which is wild.
It
Um,
was?
and he at that point apparently had enough of a sense of humor about himself to participate in the roast, but now obviously he just has made comedy such a big target and going after Kimmel and going after Colbert and sort of anyone who dares to make fun of him. What do you think changed? I mean, because you, I'm sure, got to know him a little bit then. How do you go from being willing to be roasted to where he is now in terms of comedy?
I mean, I can't speak for the president, but I think when it's friends doing it and you're volunteering, powerful people are willing to let their guard down for a couple hours. When you're not there and it's involuntary, I think People take it differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And and a more general conversation, I agree, people, it just seems weird that his sense of humor changed, but I think context is everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we roasted Donald Trump, he was surrounded by his friends and family. He was in New York. He wasn't a political figure. He was the host of The Apprentice.
Yeah.
Anybody looking to take over the world should definitely consider getting roasted first.
Yeah. Toughens you up maybe.
It didn't certainly help Tom Brady. He went on to own a football team and started this big broadcasting career. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. So in terms of the Kevin Hart roast, you've kept things pretty secretive so far. Is there anything you can spill or share or tease about what people can expect from the actual roast?
I'll say two things. One, in regards to the show itself, this is going to be a comics roast. Like Kevin wants it to be comics roasting.
Yeah, not a lot of like Martha Stewart and Ann Coulter and people we've had in the past.
But that was really a shout out to the writers' room. We are into a roaster for that Justin Bieber roast, and it went on to change her life. One of the great roast moments ever. But I think that the engine of this Kevin Hart roast will be that he's a comic at the top of the game, and he
Mhm.
wants his friends, people from his life, people he knows well, to roast him. And from my own perspective, my own attitude towards it, I don't want to ruin the surprises. There's going to be some great surprises on this one, but it's revenge. He was really mean. He was really mean last time. To me, to Tom. I was there. I talked Tom into it, and then Kevin was so freaking vicious. I was like, "Oh, there's no more protecting Tom on this." You could see Tom like win. I was backstage getting into my O.J. Simpson outfit, and I could see a monitor of Kevin just "Fuck you, Tom. Fuck you," and all the karate teacher jokes and Giselle, and I was like, "Oh man, this is way harsher than I even thought it would be." But then, so now Kevin has agreed to be roasted, and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Ooh, the swords are out. This is gonna be no holds."
Yeah, I wonder if Tom Brady would consider coming back to just get his revenge in person, or would that put him in too vulnerable a spot again? Because once you're up there, you're fair game too.
Well, there'll be some surprises.
Yeah, it did also make me think of that moment in the Brady roast where he confronted you on stage. He got up to that was a moment that I was watching where I did not know exactly what was going on, watching it in the stadium, and then it became a little bit clearer later. He came up to you and really and whispered in your ear, what did he say? "Cut that shit out," or
Don't say that shit again.
"Don't say that shit again." Was that, did you see that coming? Were you surprised that that was happening in the moment?
I didn't see it coming. I was surprised, but I also wasn't thrown off by it. Like, I knew I was pushing it. I knew it would ding him. Robert Kraft really didn't care. Tom was just sort of
Yeah, it
protecting
was a
his.
joke about Robert Kraft and the massage parlors and all that.
Yeah, it was sort of a silly joke. And you got Robert Kraft in the front row. You got to say something, right? I mean, he's right there, and so I did. And Tom defended his buddy, and, I went for it. It's like, you want to, what is it? You want to scratch. You don't want to break the skin. You want to scratch it. Like, I'm in full roast mode on a day like that. Once the producer hat comes off and the roast hat comes on, and I'm in the suit, the tuxedo,
Yeah,
whatever I'm doing,
you're unleashed.
I'm unleashed. Look, baby, come on. Born to roast.
Oh, nice. That's your tattoo.
Eddie Vedder,
Have you had that for a long time, or is that
a
new?
couple years. Eddie Vedder drew it on my arm one day.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I do wanna pivot to this other project that you're promoting because I just got to see it on Netflix, when it came out. Unfortunately, I did not get to see you perform this show live on Broadway, but I would have loved to. take a banana for the ride, it's a very different kind of project for you. Anyone who's sort of only seen you in the context of the roast, or, roast battle and all that, I think will be surprised by how emotional this show is. And I found out it was 30 plus years in the making. Is that right?
I did versions of the show, the same concept, same title in 1995, 6, 7,
That's
like,
wild.
sporadically, whenever I could find a little theater or a festival. I didn't really know what I was doing, but I would just wanted to try things. Stand-up wasn't really hitting for me yet, and I had all these stories about my parents and my grandfather, and I read my parents' love letters from when they were in college, and people always stayed with it. They always would remind me of it, and people who saw it in the '90s always said, "You gotta bring that back," and I was just like it was so emotionally intense. I didn't have the strength to keep it going. I didn't know what I was doing as an actor, and then more recently, the show was about losing people and how you bounce back and, little tips and advice on mourning, and getting through loss. And then when Gilbert Gottfried, Bob Saget, and Norm Macdonald all passed away within 8 months of each other, I went back and I looked at the old show, and I was mad. I was mad at myself for not finishing it, for not seeing it through. It was the best thing I'd ever done, and it was not, um I it was like it was a different person. I
Yeah.
couldn't replicate what I did as a young man. There was a certain energy and anger and innocence, all of it, that, I had since worked through and become an adult. So I thought, "You know what? I can't replicate." It was like having a first album that never came out,
Hmm.
and I go, "What I can do is rewrite it as the Roastmaster with this new persona that I've created over decades that I didn't have in the '90s."
Hmm.
I wasn't the roast guy yet. I was just
Yeah.
like,
You were figuring it out.
yeah. And I thought, well, if I put a layer of wisdom, of experience, of stuff that I can give people, so that it's not about my uncle and my great grandmother and my parents and my dogs, but it's about all our families and all our pets and all our loss, and let people have like a kind of a, a, a take home leftover doggy bag of advice and wisdom layered into the comedy, then I'd really be making something worth pursuing. If it was just about me, I think I would have gotten bored or given up on it. But because it became what it is, which is almost like a pep talk inside a comedy Broadway musical. There's music.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm really proud of it, and it's really good. And the reason I can brag about it is because I had so much help. Like, you know, I was watching Judd Apatow's Mel Brooks documentary, and one thing people forget about, or I forgot about, or comics never do anymore is, brag. Mel would brag. He'd go, "I got the
Yeah.
best in the summer,"
Yeah. Always.
So I go I go, "Well, no one brags anymore." I had the best set designer, the best consultants, the best projection, the best everything."
I think, also it must have been very different for you doing it, you know, 30 years later, where you're really looking back on your life versus if you had done it when you were in your, you know, 20s or 30s, everything would have been so much more fresh. But now you have the time to look back and do that, sort of comedy, tragedy plus time equals comedy thing where it is, you are able to probably laugh about some of this stuff more than you would have been able to when you were much younger.
You have all these years of experience in life and death. Um, I'm wiser.
Hmm.
One trick that actors listening to this will appreciate how I was able to make it work as an actor. The show's very emotional. I'm reliving death, not my own, other people's death. And we do get into my own mortality too. When I first started doing the show as a young man, I would just do it and then I would, throw the props in a box and go home. I just kind of walked on in whatever I was wearing, and I would always be in a bad mood after, like I was all like fucked up,
Yeah.
verklempt. And then I, I realized that that was kind of screwing me up. And I stopped doing the show. I discovered roasting. It was way more fun, making fun of celebrities and running around. But by putting on a silly yellow banana-colored suit when I was touring it and then later on Broadway, it gave me one layer of armor, emotional armor, that I could take off at the end of the show. I mean, I'd walk out off stage and pull it all off immediately, pull the mic off, jacket, pants, put on my regular clothes. And then I was able to leave it all in the dressing room and then go out and have dinner with my friends or whatever after the show, meet and greet people. And that little adjustment, my incredible costume by Tony Leslie James, Tony-winning costume designer, recommended by Idina Menzel, who's a Broadway legend.
Oh, yeah.
So things like that, elevating the show for Broadway expectations, but also thinking about it as a more serious artist.
Yeah.
I had all these decades of experience to go, here's why I was having a hard time as a young guy, and here's why I could do it now.
And then, of course, it is about loss in the past and everything. And then, right, I think before you were starting to think about bringing it to Broadway, you find out that you have colon cancer, and you, as you said, dealing with your own mortality. First of all, I wanted to see, how you're doing now, and just what that was like for you to then decide to put that into the show as well, because that must have been a kind of hard decision to decide that that's something that you wanted to share with audiences too.
It's so funny because when I got sick, about 3 weeks after that Tom Brady roast we were talking about, and by the way, Kevin Hart says, "You look sick. I don't know what it is, but you look sick."
Wow, he knew. He saw
He
something.
knew, he saved my life because I went and got checked out, and I did. I had colon cancer. By the way, I felt great. I didn't know I had colon cancer. I just went in for a colonoscopy. I'd never had one. I waited probably 10 years too long.
Mhm.
And my buddy Jordan Rubin had been texting our text chain, like a bunch of us, for a year or two, hawking me, nagging me. You ever gonna get a colonoscopy? Because I got one and there was polyps, blah blah blah. I was like, all right. So finally, the roast was over. I kind of finished this intense period of work, and I had a little break before ramping up the one-man show again. So I was like, let me go to the dentist, let me go to the shrink, let me get a colonoscopy, and boom, there it was. Like, there's a freaking tumor in there. So life, like, sometimes you go, well, I don't think I really want people knowing this because I don't want to hear a million questions. So I didn't
Mhm.
post it. I didn't tell a lot of people. I told friends, but I didn't tell my fans. And I didn't know if I'd put it in the show. I thought it'd be too depressing. I hated some of those old cancer shows, like they always were depressing when comics started talking about their illness. Um, but I had a profound experience towards the end of the whole thing where I went in for a follow-up colonoscopy a year later. And I started crying at this routine procedure because if the result was good, I could go to New York and do my show on Broadway. If it was bad, I might die. I might have more chemo. I might need more surgery. Like it was a lot at stake. And at a certain point, I realized whatever happens, happens. I have this incredible army of friends and family that will look after me. And when I realized that, I broke down. I just started what's the word? You know, and sniveling, right? Crying
Yeah,
right there at the colonoscopy, crying with the nurse. And I realized how lucky I was. And if other people could start to understand how lucky they could be or are, and little tricks that I did in my head to help me find that positive attitude. One thing I say in the show is sometimes you got to take a fake smile and just put on a fake smile until it becomes a real smile. That usually works. Little things that I was able to do when I lost my mom, when I lost my dad, when I was taking care of my grandfather, and then later on when I was taking care of myself. I went from caregiver from my pop to caregetter from my sister and my friends and my family. And all of that acceptance, as hard as it is sometimes, it really got me through it. And people are now telling me everywhere I go and on social media that I'm helping them get through it too.
that's beautiful. Yeah. And then I heard that you're doing better now. Are you in good
I'm a
shape?
100%, baby. I'm 100%, baby. The port came out a couple of weeks ago. I got a scar.
Amazing. Congratulations.
I'm on the other side of this. So anybody who's in it right now, who's hearing this, you can do it. You really can. Like cancer was a death sentence when I was a kid, and now it's not.
Yeah. There's a lot that can be done. Yeah.
A lot that could be done, but also like the reason so many people have colon cancer is because it's easy to check.
Yeah.
Like people used to just die.
Yeah. There was no way to know. Yeah.
So now, so now you can check. Yeah, and I got colon cancer. All right, I got to take care of it, and you can do it.
How do you feel like all of this grief that you've experienced in your life, all of this loss, how did it really impact your sense of humor, what you feel like you can make fun of? Do you think that that is what led you to be the roast master in a way?
I struggle with this because sometimes I go, if all that shit didn't happen to me, I'm not even sure I would have become a comedian. So I
Yeah.
hate to go, hey, thank God my parents died when I was a teen.
I know, right? That doesn't seem right.
Right? It doesn't seem fair, right? Like, I like to think you could become a comic or be funny without having to go through loss and heartbreak, but I'm not sure. I consider my whole career a happy accident. My buddy telling me to try stand up and my parents kind of raising me just enough, pushing me over the finish line of understanding what makes a decent person and mm, all of it. I don't know. That's a good one, Matt. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think?
Well, no, I see what you mean about not wanting that to be the reason because you don't want to think that if that hadn't happened that you wouldn't be where you are. But I do think all of our experiences inform who we are. So, it must have something to do with it.
I guess so. I feel very lucky with everything that's happened for whatever reason. I don't feel like I got a bum deal in life. For whatever reason, I feel lucky. And maybe it's because I learned to process it and can make it into art. All my stand up jokes were about my parents and my grandfather. And I didn't talk about them dying. I just talked about them.
Yeah.
It was a way to process them and keep them alive.
So what I want to do now, because that got pretty dark, I thought we could lighten things up by doing a bit of a roast speed round. I want to ask you some questions about all of the many, many roasts that you've done over the years. Looking back, just some quick questions. Who is the comedian who just killed the hardest that you couldn't believe what you were seeing over all of the roasts?
Oof. Well, the obvious one is Gilbert.
Yeah.
Comedy Central would always book him or make me book him right at the last end. Like, they tried
Yeah.
everything.
If we can get anybody else, yeah.
Nicole Kidman's finally said, we finally got a no from Denzel Washington. So, all right, see if Gilbert's around. And all the writers would rejoice because
Yeah.
now suddenly we can write the funniest, most fucked up thing in the world for Gilbert.
Yeah.
And I was just talking to his wife, Dara, this morning before I talked to you. And there's an article out about how Comedy Central wanted to cut all the 9/11 references from the U after roast. And I battled it out with them.
Thank God.
Well, most of them were gone. The aristocrats, all that was cut. It was only
Right.
later that I helped them find that footage. Gilbert, for me, like when I was in the writer's room yesterday, looking at the rundown of this Kevin Hart roast, I missed Gilbert. I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was like, how are we finishing this? Oh, that'll be
Yeah.
fun. But man, I miss my,
Yeah. Your closer.
yeah.
Is there a comedian who you underestimated in some way or just didn't know that well who really surprised you with what they brought to one of the roasts?
I thought Tony Hinchcliffe would be great at the Brady roast. I didn't know he would be a sensation.
Yeah.
Like, he came out of the crowd, stood up, and the stakes were really high for him, never having done a Netflix show before, let alone a roast. He kind of made his own path. I always told him he would make his own path, and that him and I, certain types of styles of comedy are not your typical Hollywood trajectory.
Mhm.
And to see him go up in an arena that suited him, not just the physical arena, but the world of roasting, and to see him crush, crush, crush for 5, 8 minutes like that made me really proud. Because he'd been in the writer's room. You know, a lot of the great roasters, Whitney Cummings, Anthony Jeselnik,
Yeah, they start out in the writer's room.
they were all in the writer's room for a long time. And people act like Nikki, came out of nowhere. She'd been doing my roast battles as a judge. She'd been doing the roasts for a long time. Like, she earned that spot and then earned her blast off.
Yeah. Are you surprised that she turned down this one? Because she pretty publicly came out and said, "You know what? I just don't have time to do it. Maybe she doesn't think she can top what she did last time." I don't know. What do you
Now,
think?
I'm never surprised when people say no. I am surprised when they say yes. These are, no one knows how much work this is better than Nikki. And it's not like asking someone to show up for a day and do 5 minutes.
Mhm. Yeah. She puts a lot of work into it for sure.
Everything in her career that she's working on would have to go on the back burner. And that's a lot to ask.
Yeah. She's got a lot going on. Is there a non-comedian who surprised you with their comedy chops, how well they could tell jokes?
Oh, yeah. Woof. Well, there was a few at that last one. Bill Belichick really was funny to me.
Mhm.
You know, it was like Darth Vader coming out. I even gave him my old Darth Vader entrance music. Um, and Edward Norton on that Bruce Willis roast. People like to talk about the James Franco roast and Bill Hader doing a character.
Mhm. Yeah. I always think about the Andy Samberg one. Was that on the Franco roast? Which one was that where he did the anti-roast?
Yeah, that was on the Franco roast.
Yeah.
I love when great comedic voices adapt what they do to the roast, as opposed to trying to become Don Rickles.
Yeah, Samberg thought, "I can't be Don Rickles, so I gotta do something else."
Right. And to me, that just delights me so much when they take the roast so seriously that they turn it into art, a performance, something memorable, something original. Anybody can get a bunch of jokes from a writer's room and read them off and kind of like, all right, I did that, stamp it off. But to make it a show within the show, that I really respect that forever. Martha Stewart's another great example. The writers wrote that for her, but she had a lot of input and her delivery was fantastic. She rehearsed, but she was brave, like to like step out of her normal arena, her normal comfort zone and go, yeah, I'm going to like play off my persona.
Yeah, and that probably set off a whole new career for her too, she's been doing it ever since in some ways.
And I love the last part of your question. I love how uh, Rob Gronkowski, Gronk, and Julian Edelman, and some of the other football players at the Brady roast took it really seriously. They got competitive with each other, with Tom Brady, and they turned themselves into comedians.
Yeah, yeah,
Like we helped, but those guys really worked hard. Julian Edelman came to the Comedy Store with me the night before the roast and rehearsed. Um, they took it, it was they knew it was a Super Bowl of comedy and they took it that seriously.
not to be too negative, but there have been some historic bombs in the history of these roasts as well. Who do you think bombed the hardest? What was the most painful to watch, somebody just struggle up there?
What do you think? Remind me.
There's 2 that come to mind for me. I think it's either, Ann Coulter or The Situation.
Yeah. Well, see, stunt booking.
That's what you get sometimes.
Here's a warning to agents out there. If you get a call for your client to do a roast and they're not sure what a roast is,
Maybe it's not the best fit.
yeah, or maybe you're being stunt cast.
Mhm.
With Ann Coulter, I take the blame partially on that one because Rob Lowe's roast was coming together nicely, but it didn't have a lot of there wasn't a lot of spark there. It was like, well, we were going into an
Yeah.
election season, and I was
You
like,
needed a wild card.
we need a political wild card. We need somebody that can kind of absorb political jokes. And she wanted to promote her book, and we wrote her really good stuff, and she didn't want to do the stuff we wrote for her. That would have been self-aware and funny and self-deprecating. And, don't forget to really answer your question. We don't want anybody to bomb, even if
No.
I don't agree with who they are politically or whatever,
Yeah, it's better if they kill up there, no matter who they are.
because I got to do this again. And if you don't, if people bomb, it's hard to book.
Mhm. Yeah, people say, "I don't wanna turn out like Ann Coulter."
Right. The situation was a little different. Comedy Central and Viacom, they wanted somebody from the Jersey Shore because that was the biggest show uh, in at the time, and they knew that that would be a lightning rod. And we did write funny stuff for him. At some point during the commercial break, Snoop said, "Why don't you wear sunglasses so that they don't see you reading the prompter?" Now, this is great advice if you're Snoop Dogg. If you're the situation,
Doesn't work.
you look like a total dick wearing sunglasses inside doing the roast. There's no humanity. You're not getting in there. You're not seeing into the guy's soul. So everything seemed mean and not personal. And the humanity kind of fell away. And but I have to admit, those moments are talked about 2 decades later.
Yeah, to this day, yeah. In terms of the, the celebrity or the comedian at the center of the roast, the person getting roasted, is there sort of a best sport or worst sport that you remember as someone who either was, like, just down for anything or someone who really struggled and said and had more trouble with the whole thing?
One of the best sports in history has to be Flava Flav. I'll never forget just looking over to the side and just seeing his feet kicking up like a baby in a stroller. Just,
You just loved it?
rappers love roasting because it's wordplay. And he still, every time I see him, says it was the best day of his life.
Amazing.
Justin Bieber, I saw him a few weeks ago. He said, always says, the best day ever. He's like, I feel like it helped rebrand him, relaunch him. He said as much to me privately.
Yeah. Anyone come up to you and say, "How could you make me do that? That was, the worst day of my life?"
Not yet, but we got the Kevin Hart
Not
roast.
yet. Yeah. Maybe that'll be Kevin. I doubt it. Um, is there one roast joke that for you is like the ultimate joke, just that was the best one that you'll never forget?
From me,
Either something you told or something someone else told or just something that you just feel like is one that you'll remember forever.
I'm constantly reminded of it. It's from 1999 when we were roasting Jerry Stiller. And Jerry Stiller said to me, like, this is like the Oscars for me. Like, comics don't get Oscars. There's no category. Comedians, this is the
This is
lifetime
as good as
achievement.
it gets. Yeah.
It's the highest honor. So I was like, well, then invite all your friends. Everyone needs to be there. And he invited B. Arthur. And you know where this is going, but
Yeah. Hmm.
comedy fans never, never go a day without me reading something online or somebody stopping me in the street, and I wouldn't fuck you with B. Arthur's dick. And, you know, she wound up loving it. And I saw Sandra Bernhard not too long ago, and she always brings it up because the joke was really about her.
Yeah.
It's not even a great
You
joke.
managed to roast two people with one joke, which is always that's a feat.
It's called a twofer.
Yeah, that's good.
And it's not that the joke was so great. The joke's kind of silly, but B. Arthur's reaction, the evil eye, look, and the finger, that's what made this like double into a grand slam. Like her reaction, and I always tell this to the roasters, no one remembers the jokes. They remember the moments.
Hmm.
And that's a moment.
Yeah. Well, I hope there are some great moments in this roast coming up. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be huge. Take a Banana for the Ride is streaming now on Netflix, and the Roast of Kevin Hart will premiere live on Netflix on Sunday, May 10th at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Jeff Ross, thank you so much for doing this. It's great to see you.
Matt, I always love talking to you, and thank you for your thoughtful questions, and congrats on your new podcast, buddy.
Thanks, man. Good to see you.
Thanks, brother. Peace.
All right. Thank you again so much to Jeff Ross for being my guest on this week's show. I know that people think he's this tough Roastmaster general character, but I've always known he's a big softie, and I'm glad that you can all see that too. If you're enjoying this podcast, please subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Obsessed Channel. Leave us some comments on this video and our other episodes to let us know what you love about the show, who you want to see as a guest on it. Just give us, any feedback that you might have. And please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and leave ratings and reviews there as well. It really helps the show find new people. Thank you so much to our producers, Rachel Passer, and we'll be back with an all-new episode of Obsessed, the podcast, very soon.